Well, Jim, we were talking on a not too controversial subject at all.
No, not it's an area where people rarely have an opinion.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Same-sex marriage. Never. Yeah, we never hear about that in the news at all and stuff. But thank you for helping. Jim is helping us clarify what's been going on with it, because it's a fast-moving subject, a lot faster than I thought it would be. Because once they start, some of the states started allowing same-sex marriage, it's been a little of a tidal wave.
It has. I mean, the wave has been heading towards acceptance. I think society is ready to
hear that, Gino?
embrace that. That there's no reason to stigmatize, put them in a different class. It is a discrimination issue, and that's
absolutely.
We were talking about the Defense of Marriage Act, which basically was deemed constitutional by this United States Supreme Court. What I mean by this, we're talking about like the same justices, so we could expect they would have to follow the same ideologies in dealing with the balance of the same-sex issue. And in DOMA, for the what we had under DOMA was the federal government was prohibited from recognizing same-sex marriages, so these couples could not file a joint tax return, did not receive Social Security benefits or any other benefits that were conferred on other validly married couples. And the United States Supreme Court in that case said that there's no rationale to support that, and it was discrimination, and it was a violation of Equal Protection Clause.
Ultimately, at the end of the last segment, you alluded to how in the past, interracial marriages may have been treated in a similar manner.
There were. I mean, it isn't all that long ago. It's basically in the late 1960s is when the United States Supreme Court had to deal with the issue of a number of states that still prohibited interracial marriages. And that court, which is different than today's court, because the court back at that point in time was considered considerably more liberal in its bent, because remember, we're dealing with Voting Rights Act, we're dealing with all of the racial inequalities,
sure.
School segregation, and all those kind of issues. So we have a different composition to the United States Supreme Court now, but they have to honor the precedent of the past. So it'd be interesting if there's going to be any justice who's going to say, well, this is a states' right issue, so it is up to the states to determine whether or not same-sex partners can validly be married in their state. Then the next question comes up when a couple who is validly married, say here in California, moves to a state that does not recognize same-sex marriage, or let's call it does not allow same-sex marriage. How is that state now going to have to deal with a valid marriage from another state?
Yeah, that was a hot topic. When you said that, both Gino like, ooh, never thought about that, because you're thinking, okay, you live in a state that allows it. Now you job-wise, whatever the case may be, you move to another state and they don't allow it. That could affect you dramatically.
I'll bring a unique perspective to that. I wasn't even married in this country, and it's legally accepted here.
Well, generally, there's other things that come into play. We call like full faith and credit. So basically, most states recognize the validity of a marriage that's valid in the jurisdiction in which it's entered into. But historically, that has involved opposite-sex couples and hasn't pushed the same buttons.
Right. Good point. Yeah, it hasn't pushed the limits the same way. So it's easy for them to accept it.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. You would think that the court, when they accept a case like this, has to deal with all aspects of the case, but the United States Supreme Court gets to play by its own rules, and it states that these are really the only issues that we're going to decide. And it's not uncommon for the court to decide only minimally what they have to decide, and then that's it.
And let it come up again 3 to 5 years later.
Let it come up again in due course. And, we were talking about this during the intermission. That tidal wave seems to be headed more towards acceptance. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if we did have a court that somehow dealt with the DOMA issue and an equal protection issue to say, the federal government must grant recognition of this valid marriage, does that mean that the Constitution will require a state, and assuming the court says that it is a state's right issue to determine who can be married, can then the Supreme Court state that that state that doesn't allow the same-sex marriage must recognize a valid marriage from another state?
Right.
Boy, this is getting tricky.
And you just tuned in. We're here with Jim Reape, with Reape Rickett, attorney at law, one of the best family law attorneys in town. Good friend of ours, been on the show many a times, and a contributor to the Vault magazine.
Yes.
Very cool. And you can find all that information at aprgi.com. How else can they get a hold of you, too? Because I know they're going, this guy knows a lot about everything. So a good wealth of knowledge and a good resource for all of you out there.
Well, thank you for that. And we are very happy to be a research tool, because we are a porthole for information. I believe that information should be accessible to people, and accessible really at no cost. So if you have any interest
I have to back you up on that, and we'll get your because when we talked about APRGI, that was one of the hot topics you jumped on. You're like, so we're just going to be able to send out an email blast with this magazine and share information. So it's not about ads. It's
Correct.
about actual articles informing, educating, and entertaining our collective clients so that more people can get more quality advice. And you were the first one on board.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been something that I've cared about. Accessing legal services is very expensive, so you want to be very precise in what type of relationship it is that you want to have with your attorney and what exactly you're using them for. I wouldn't recommend using us, to divide up your, linens versus your dishes.
Probably not worth it.
Yeah.
Unless they're really, really expensive linens.
So, but to get a hold of us, join the conversation at divorcedigest.com. From articles to a lot of information to free interactive forums where you could actually pose questions yourself, and our 11 attorneys on staff will take a stab at answering them for you.
Yeah, you have a whole plethora of attorneys there that can help a lot of you out there if you need to, because unfortunately sometimes you don't know you need that assistance, but you can get good guidance. And what's nice too, Jim, and I know in the past we've had you on the shows and you talked about you have the potential of helping them mitigate it as opposed to mediate. Sorry.
Yeah, there's many different portholes and many different ways to dispute resolution, but the one thing I would suggest for anybody who's either dealing with a potential end of a marriage or entering into a marriage, or family formation issues, or dealing with children out of wedlock, is at least invest in a consultation with an attorney, because you don't know what you don't know.
No doubt.
And under the law, it's not an excuse for you not to know.
Oh, there you go. So make sure you're in the know. Make sure you reach out to Jim Reape with Reape Rickett, Attorneys at Law. And again, you can find out more at divorcedigest.com.
Absolutely.
And what's your number locally?
661-288-1000.
All right. Always great information. Great jumping in such a controversial topic as same-sex marriage, but thank you for helping us clarify this new revolution that's coming upon all of us that we need to know more about.
Absolutely. It's here, folks. We're going to have to deal with it in one way or another. But in time, I'm sure that it's going to work its way out.
All right. Well, good stuff right here on the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show every Saturday, 9 a.m. and played again online on Sundays, 9 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Make sure you spend time with us every week, and we'll help guide you to personal financial wellness. Thanks for being with us again today. Great job, Gino.
Glad to be back, Don.
All right. We'll see you next week.